All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura. This is Bailey. And we are from New Zealand and have recently moved to Germany. My husband's from Australia. He came with us too, obviously. But the day that we were meant to leave, we had our plans completely turned upside down less than 12 hours before we were meant to fly. And this is a move we started planning in February and we moved in November. So I'm going to give you guys the story of how this all went down, how we coped, and how we safely got here to Germany. Let's do it. Okay, so firstly, it's been a few days since I did my last video. I now have this robe to go with my awesome pajamas that I have matching with my husband. The baby bump is coming through. I am now, oh, there's the microphone. I am now 30 weeks, which is super exciting. And I've had appointments with my midwife here and everything. So that's all set up really well. However, moving day, oh my goodness, let's get into that story. And I think that it's something that I want to get out of the way and done because I don't think I ever want to kind of relive this again. So, like I said, we started planning this in February. The first thing we checked was that we could take our puppy dog here because if I can't take him, I don't want to go. Anywhere that we were looking to move to, I was like, we need to take the dog. He is my emotional support best friend. And so, yeah, he had to come with us. So we started planning that in February. We vaguely planned when we were going to leave, which was meant to be December. And then when we found out we were pregnant, we decided to move a month sooner. So we decided to move in November so that I'd be traveling at about 27 weeks pregnant. We got all of our flights booked about 3 or 4 months before we left. That was all set. For the dog, we had to do vet checks the week before and then the day before we were meant to fly, and we were both flying out on the same day. He had to do a MPI check, so Ministry of Primary Industries. So basically, they vouch for the fact that whatever's being exported from New Zealand is, and that he was being exported from New Zealand, is in the condition that it should be, is healthy, is as it says it should be, and all of that. It's all above board, it's all fine on the paperwork, all of that. And that all went totally fine, like flying colours, that was all good. So the morning that we were meant to leave, the plan was that he got picked up at about 7 a.m. So we had to take him for a walk before that, give him just a little bit of food, and then he went into his travel crate. And this had all been prepped from the day before. Then he went in and there was a special seal that was put on it, and basically he wasn't going to be hopping out until he was at the halfway point, and then he'd be let out in a special facility for that. He'd go back in and then he would arrive at the final destination. So they took him, and it was about 9:30 a.m. We had packed up the last of like all of the kitchen stuff, because we had breakfast, washed that. We were getting everything ready to like donate the last of the stuff. I'd started putting stuff outside ready for our friends to pick up like that afternoon, like the last of the things. And we got a call. And the call started from our pet transport person with the fact that this was probably the worst news they could be calling us with. And poor little me, at like 27 weeks pregnant, I was already, I'd already had to go off caffeine about a week or two prior to us moving because it was giving me like heart palpitations, which can happen in pregnancy. So I was doing my best to breathe through this, but basically everything had all been cleared, all the paperwork, everything was totally fine. And then at 2 a.m, the day that we were meant to fly, we'd gotten some correspondence from one of the pieces along the way saying that they actually believed that there was an issue and that he wasn't allowed to fly. There was no evidence for this. This person had actually already signed off on the paperwork for it, but had then contacted us and, well, actually contacted our people in New Zealand directly to say that they believed that there was an issue. They'd had all of the documentation officially for over a month, and they'd known the basic details of everything for about 4 or 5 months because we got in touch like well in advance. So at that point, our pet transport person said that they did not want our dog flying that day if they weren't sure of every step along the way, because they didn't want them being stuck in like customs or quarantine or something somewhere with us having no control over it. So he was like, the dog is not flying today. His initial instinct was that the dog could fly out a few days later, but for us to get our timing right, because the other thing is that the dog had to be a non-commercial import, because if he was going to be a commercial import, then he would have to have a blood test to confirm that he was immune to rabies, and then have a 4-month stand down period, and then could be imported. So that was just crazy, right? And that's like EU requirements and stuff. That was just crazy. So for him to be considered non-commercial, we had to like leave and arrive, him and us, all within kind of the same 5-day window. It's a bit weird to understand, but anyway. So this was one of our 3 flight changes we ended up making. So we changed our flights to just be the exact same flights, but a day later. And that cost us about $300. That was kind of fine because we had planned to fly with Air New Zealand to Vancouver to see our friends there for about 48 hours we would be there. And then we were flying with Lufthansa from Vancouver into Germany. And so by moving our flight by 24 hours, it then meant that we would just have like one night in Vancouver, which wasn't ideal, but it meant that we only had to change one flight. So we did that, right? We got that sorted, and it was then adjusting things to say, okay, we're going to be here for one more day. That's fine. A few hours later, or was it about an hour later, we got a call again to say that everything was booked on that day. So it would be another 2 days later. And at that point, we knew that we would have to change everything entirely. So because we had planned this 48-hour stopover, our flights weren't like one booking. It was 2 separate bookings. So I knew that Air New Zealand would probably be quite reasonable. I had no idea with Lufthansa. So we contacted them to say, hey, we want to change our flights. And when I've been looking at like different options for us getting over there, Vancouver was definitely not the cheapest. This was like a special thing we wanted to do. And I knew that Houston was a really good option. And it was a really long, like 1-block flight from New Zealand to Houston. But then it was quite cheap for that. So then flying Lufthansa Houston into Germany would have been decent. So we called them to establish, okay, what's going to be the cost for us to change this? And then let me see if we can change it within New Zealand. I had to kind of check with one, check with the other, do with one, then go back to the first and do that. It was, I just needed to check that everything would be fine. So they quoted us 1,400 Canadian to change our flights. And then because we had additional luggage as well, because we were taking 6 pieces between us, I needed to check with that. That was all included. So we were like, great. So we called in New Zealand back, like it was probably like an hour later actually, to say, hey, we just changed our flights. We need to change them again. Actually, we're going via Houston and we need to go a few days later. So we got that sorted. So that was then $700 to change that. Okay, so we're up to 1,000 here. And that was great. We needed to get food at this point because we were so exhausted. And then we also had a nap because, again, so exhausted. This was all so draining. So we got that done, called back Lufthansa. So this was like 4 hours after we'd initially called them. And they then said, okay, so to make that change, exact same change I'd asked them about earlier, that had been 1,400 Canadian for the 2 of us, they said that's going to be 3,000 US each. And we were like, sorry, what? And he said, yeah, if I put it in the computer, ask the computer says 3,000 US each. And I was like, what the heck? And at the same time that we were on the phone, I was like looking this up and I'm like, it's about that to just book this outright. We've already paid for like reasonably expensive flights and you're telling us that it's going to be this much just to change it. Like we'd be almost better off just doing a brand new booking. And the guy was like, yeah, no, I don't know what to tell you. This is just what the computer's saying. We're like, we called like a few hours ago and they said this. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. This is just what the computer says. So it feels like they don't have access to much detail. They just ask the computer and the computer says, go screw yourself. So we were like, you know what? We're just going to call back and get someone else to try enter it into the computer and like see what that says. So we hopped off the phone for like 20 minutes and we were like, what the heck is going on here? So we called Lufthansa again. They entered it into the computer and told us it would be 5,000 euros per person to make this change. And at that point, we were like, cool, we need to speak to a manager. They don't have a manager on site. We said, cool, we need to make a complaint right now. And you need to go back through your own records of telling us how much this was going to cost, because this is price gouging. Like, this is insane. And they said, oh, we can't do that over the phone, right? What ended up happening with those flights is that we got about $100 refund on like $3,000 flights when we got them refunded. And so far we've received nothing for the additional baggage that we paid for. So we're not going to be booking with them anytime soon. I then called back in New Zealand for the third time that day and quickly explained to the lady on the phone our situation, the fact that I was 27 weeks pregnant, doing all of this. We had to change these last minute because stuff got screwed up with taking our dog, and she was so lovely. And so we ended up then changing our flights again to go via San Francisco, added on whole new flights, including those 6 bags total, to then additionally get us from San Fran into Germany. And that entire change cost us $800, which, like, considering the fact that it was 2 more big international flights with all that baggage and the changes, was just like amazing. So honestly, thank you, Air New Zealand. This is the story of how, like, as Kiwis, we like to think that we're like super awesome at everything. We're not super awesome at everything, but we do have a really awesome airline, and they helped us out so much that day. So there it was. That was then all sorted, except it wasn't. So we ended up having to change the port where he was being imported to make sure that our people in New Zealand were comfortable that they were dealing with people who weren't going to at 2 a.m. on the day we were meant to fly, change plans on them. So what it ended up meaning was that we arrived a few days later. We did not get to go via Vancouver to see our friends there, which really, really sucks. Who knows when we'll get there? It'll either be with a small baby, maybe next year, or maybe they'll end up coming over. I'm not sure at this stage. It's been almost 2 years since we saw them, so that's real sad. But that is what it is. And the dog arrived a few days after us. We were still pretty exhausted, but we then had to hop on a train for about 4 hours to get to where we were actually going to be picking him up from. But he was in safe hands there, and we finally got him and got him safely here, which is great. But it was not a fun time. I will say it was kind of nice in a way. It was less rushed when we did actually leave, because we didn't have to do everything in a day a little bit on that last day. We kind of had more things sorted. It was really, really lucky that our bed frame had sold, but that wasn't getting picked up until the following weekend. Originally, it was going to be my sister would come back to our house and get that picked up. It just meant that we could keep sleeping in our bed. And the person who was meant to buy the mattress flaked out on us, so they didn't show up either. So that also was sorted the day that we were leaving. So the really vital stuff, oh, and my husband's car, he was selling it to a friend, and the friend was like, dude, that's fine, keep the car for a few days, right? So all the really vital stuff we still had, which was really, really good. I was about 5 minutes away from putting all of the dog stuff down by the road. I would have had to run down and save that after finding out that we still need that because there's still going to be a dog around for like a week. Oh, but it was just such a mare. It was just such a stressful day. And I suppose it just speaks to, like, you got unprofessional people everywhere. Like, if this person genuinely thought that there was an issue with our documentation or whatever, why did they officially accept it and officially sign off on it, and then the day we were meant to fly say that they thought that there was an issue? It's super weird, especially since we should have had to pay double for his flights, and his flights were, well, maybe with our additional charges they ended up being about the same. they were very up there. They were very, very up there. For our initial flights, us with 6 bags was not as expensive as him. Because it was within 24 hours, right? Because he contacted us 2 a.m. He was meant to fly at like 6 p.m. Then we were on the hook to pay double fares because it was within 24 hours, which is insane. And I think just because the agency that we were with is so onto it, the airline was like, okay, we know that you guys never change stuff last minute. So if something's happened, this isn't your fault. So yeah, let's just move the flight for you, which was such a godsend. But like the lack of professionalism to have all of the information that you need for over 30 days and then the day of say, I think that there's an issue, is just insane. Just completely insane. It's made me tempted to go into like pet transport logistics type stuff, because I'm like, yeah, I feel like I could run circles around this jerk bag and do this properly and make this not stressful for people, and make sure that if I have concerns that they're addressed up front, all of this kind of stuff, you know, all of that really important professional stuff that you should be doing when people are moving to the other side of the world. And we'd sent like a little intro and everything, so they knew that we were moving at like 6 months pregnant and all of this, right? It like all of the information and context was there. Oh, so anyway, it also meant that we didn't get the sky couch, which I was pretty sad about. The sky couch is where the seats, you get 3 seats between 2 people. You have to pay a bit extra for it, which we did, but we ended up getting that extra refunded because that's how you do it. Lufthansa, I'm looking at you. We didn't get our 6 bags, guys, sorted out. So the 3 seats, and then I'm not sure if like the legs fold up or something, but anyway, you end up with a flat space. You can actually sleep flat, which would have been lovely. Instead, we had just the 2 seats, normal stuff. It was a very crowded flight, and the air conditioning didn't work properly. So there I was at 6 months pregnant. I ended up sleeping in my sports bra, and I had shorts on that were rolled down to expose my tummy because I was so hot on that flight. The next one was a little bit better. It had better air conditioning, but yeah, it was meant to be a really chill, fun trip where we'd have sky couch to sleep on, arrive in Vancouver, see our friends, have 2 nights there, and then carry on. Yeah. So I think I'm still feeling a bit sad that we didn't end up having that experience, but I am just really glad at the end of the day that we had great people on our side who, when we were thrown, they said, you know, one of the biggest curveballs they've ever had in like 25 years. We're just lucky, I suppose. When we got thrown that curveball, we had really great people on our side to make sure that it worked out. So we are all safely here. This is reminding me to go back and chase Lufthansa for our bloomin' baggage fees. Thank you for that. And then hopefully after this, and after editing this video, I don't have to think about this again. It's not one of my favorite memories. It's not one of my favorite days. The really sad thing being that all of this happened the day before my husband's birthday. We were meant to be in Vancouver seeing our friends for my husband's birthday, and instead we just had stressy McStress town instead. But as my husband said, you know, maybe the day itself wasn't the most fun, but the situation of, you know, he's safe, I'm safe, baby's safe, Bailey's safe, we're starting a new life, everything's all coming together, the house sale had just gone through, all of that. In the grand scheme of things, it was still a really great birthday for him, which is awesome. And as tough as everything is now, which I'll update you guys on soon, we're really glad to be here, and I will keep trying to keep you guys updated. Motivation's a little bit hard right now because there is so much on the go, and everything's just really tricky when you're in a new country figuring everything out. But thank you guys so much for being here. I think I'm going to go to bed soon. I would say because it's dark outside, it's dark from 4:30 p.m. But you know, it's extra dark. I don't know. Let's go with that. And yeah, take care, guys, and we will talk again soon. Okay, bye.